Who was Karen Brook before she became Karen Brook we see today?
What a great question. I love that. Karen Brook was, a young girl who grew up in the heart of Australia, next to a desert, basically.
Is there a memory from your childhood that shaped you, the person you're today?
That's a really beautiful question. It's also a little bit of a sad one, Nick. My brother died when I was 11 and he was 20. He died in a helicopter accident, doing something that he loved.
What is something what drives you to say, okay, I want to be what you're exactly doing today with high achievers, with high performance? What was your why?
It wasn't a driver, it wasn't a motivation, it wasn't to go out and earn $1 million. It had nothing to do with the money or the success or the accolades. It felt like a realization that this is where I'm meant to be.
How you manage to build the businesses without losing yourself in the process?
I'm 2 decades now self-employed, so I haven't just started this yesterday.
I would like to ask you, is there a cost of your success that people don't see? I want to ask you where the belief comes from. Where do you have a source of energy where you say, I believe in that? I would like to ask you, when you face a fear, what do you tell to yourself? How do you create belief in outcome you want?
Guys, I need to say something. We're building something really special here. The level of guests, the conversations, the depth we are going in week by week, it's becoming better and better, more and more valuable. But there is one thing which doesn't make any sense. Almost 90% of you who keep watching the episodes, who keep coming back week by week, are not subscribed yet. Which means one thing, you're not fully part of that journey. I get it. It's one click. It feels small. But for us, and myself personally, means everything. It tells the algorithm that we matter, it helps us reach bigger guests and create better and better podcast episodes, which at the end of the day are equally for myself like for yourself. They bring the value. So if there was ever a moment to support us, I please you to do it right now. Check if you're subscribed, and if you're not, it's completely free. It doesn't mean to you that much like it means to us. Just click the subscribe button, and by that way, you will help us grow bigger and bigger. And what I can promise you is that me and my team will continue making improves and very soon move ourselves to the real studio where we will record even more powerful episodes with same and new guests. Check, are you subscribed? And subscribe right now. Thank you.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to one more episode of NGrS Show. And as I said already, today with me, Karen Brook. Karen, thank you so much for coming today here, and thank you for managing the time to record this episode, as it's 5 a.m. on my side, and on your side it's probably already afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick, for having me, and I'm so happy to make the time difference work to be here with your audience.
Pleasure is mine. Karen, when I was preparing for this episode, I found multiple topics which I want to speak to you today, and one of the things which strongly highlight from your branding is that you're into the mindset, that you're into the leadership skills, that you're helping high achievers and high professionals. But to we start somewhere from the very beginning, my first question for you would be, who was Karen Brook before she became Karen Brook we see today?
What a great question. I love that. Karen Brook was, a young girl who grew up in the heart of Australia, next to a desert, basically. She always wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to study medicine. I went away to boarding school when I was 12 years old, so left my family to go to high school. Where I grew up was a very small town of only 100 people. So there was no high school, and we knew we would go away to what we call it boarding school. And, she went through high school and she wanted to study medicine. And then I didn't get into medicine. I just missed out. And it's funny looking back on it, Nick, because in many ways, I'm still helping people, but just in a different way. And, I didn't go down that path. I did nursing for 6 months. It was like, that's probably not for me either. And anyway, long story short, I got into branding and marketing, and I had a graphic design and a communications business. So I guess before Karen Brook was Karen Brook, she had a branding and marketing business. She had a branding and communications business and was going into people's businesses and working on their identity, on their visual identity. And that's what I did throughout most of my 20s. I've always been self-employed and started that business in my very early 20s. And that's who I was, and that's what I did before I became Karen Brook.
Whenever you come to the salesperson will tell you, I know how to help you. We are having perfect solution for you. But in fact, you have a great product, you have a great offer, you know that you can help so many people, but you're still inconsistent. Why it's like that? Because you misunderstand two basic principles. And let me tell you something, it's not economy, it's not war, it's not current president or political situation, none of that. Because simply you and money were always on the same planet Earth. You never left the planet, and most likely money never did it, right? The only two ways are the reason why it's like that. Number one thing which can be the reason is that you don't know the right way of presenting your offer. Number two can be that you don't know the proper way to whom to present it, which boils down to you don't know to whom to sell, or you don't know the right way to speak to the people to whom to sell. I have been scaling in the past 10 years multiple of my own companies and companies of my clients from $0 to $200,000 in sales, being in China, selling physical, perishable items like food and beverages, and without speaking Chinese, without writing Chinese, and without knowing how to sell to Chinese people. But I knew one core principle, and this is that psychology of people never change. So I knew to whom to sell, and I knew exact way how to present my offer to them. I was scaling up my digital businesses to hundreds of thousands of dollars, again understanding two core principles: to whom to sell, so who can benefit from my offer, and the way, when, and how to present my offer. And there is no magic and there is no secret behind that. It's really easy to understand it. But in order to this video be very short, I put all of this together in the school community, which is completely for free. You can join it right now, clicking on the link below in the description box, and you can discover these two principles. It will take you a couple of days to figure it out yourself and to practice it, and then your sales will become consistent. Until then, see you in the school community. Bye for now.
That's awesome, because you were always wanting to help people in some sort of, considering what you wanted to do and what you're doing today. And can you tell me, please, considering this, have you always felt that you were meant for more, knowing that you're from the small place, from the place where you have to move in order to even continue school, right? Or there was something you had to grow into yourself so that you make that decision to transition to the coaching?
Yeah, I think the answer is both. I always had a feeling that I was destined to do big things or worldly things, and I didn't know at that time what that was going to look like. And for a while there, it was study medicine, become a Royal Flying Doctor, go and become a doctor in Outback Australia. But after my sort of teenage years and into my early 20s, I did realise that I had this yearning for something, to create something, to build a business, to build a big business, to grow my income. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like at the time. But I did know very early on in my early 20s that I had an enormous capacity to hold very big, complex ideas and make it very simple for people to understand. I always knew I had that gift to very quickly sort through a lot of information and relay it in a way that was helpful or relatable or that could be of benefit. So whether that was at the time, you know, deciphering someone's logo or their identity, they'd tell me their story and I'd be able to visualize it and put it into a picture, or whether it was building a brand strategy or a positioning statement, and I'd be able to I'd make it work so effortlessly. And then obviously that sort of turned into what I do now, which is holding, you know, very big scientific principles, quantum principles, the natural laws of the universe, the human mind, neuroscience, sort of all of this. And then how do we use that as individuals to create the life that we really want? So I knew I had that gift and I was going to do something, I guess, worldly with it. But at the same time, I also had to grow as a woman and a leader to be able to hold that identity, to be able to feel that's not for somebody else, or that it is, that I can have a role in this. And I was young in business, and I was, all of those sort of things that sometimes we say, well, we're not ready for it, or it's not for us, we don't know enough, or it's not the right time. So I still had to fight, I guess, against myself for a while until I accepted the idea and went, actually, I'm doing this now.
I see. And I must ask you, Karen, is there a memory from your childhood that shaped you, the person you're today?
That's a really beautiful question. It's also a little bit of a sad one, Nick. My brother died when I was 11 and he was 20. He died in a helicopter accident, doing something that he loved. And that moment definitely shaped me, as I'm sure if anyone has experienced, death close to us, in two ways. One, that I thought, I've got to make every day count. As an 11-year-old, I had that thought. I've got to live every day to the fullest and make it count and do what I love. And we took a lot of, I guess, peace as a family in that time, and a strong faith as well, that, if there was something to take away from it, that he was doing something that he loved, and he didn't stop until he found what he loved. So, he went to university, he tried a couple of things, and it wasn't for him, and he found flying. And he wasn't doing it for very long, unfortunately, when he died, but those were some of the best months, the best year of his life learning that. And so that certainly shaped me to not settle, to not take life for granted, to make every day count, and to be your best. And that really did shape me as an 11-year-old.
It's a really powerful story, in the same time sad, but in the same time I see it something what leveraged you for the future, in the way that you also wanted to do what you love and what your passion is. And I would like to ask you something. I never asked this to anyone on the podcast, but why you wanted that? What's the purpose? What is something what drives you to say, okay, I want to be what you're exactly doing today, with high achievers, with high performance? What was your why?
It wasn't a driver. It wasn't a motivation. It wasn't to go out and earn $1 million. It had nothing to do with the money or the success or the accolades. It felt like a realization that this is where I'm meant to be, that I'm not going out there to get this work. It is coming through me. That I was being intuitively guided by a higher side of myself to really become an expert, to gather this knowledge, to make a difference in the way. I never set out, you ask anyone, I never set out to say I'm going to be a coach one day. That was never sort of something that was a goal. It was, I built my business. I had two businesses. I had the branding and marketing business, and I had an events management company. And I had both the creative mind and the sort of business mind, which is unique in that environment, to be able to pitch and sell and get the contract and deliver the as they call it, the suit side of advertising and marketing. But I also was creative. I had a graphic design degree. So, and then that went into, people were asking me to help with their strategy. They'd come to me, helping them with their strategy, but they didn't know what they wanted, or they didn't know what they wanted their business to be in the marketplace. And so I started to do that work with them. And then it became very evident that I was starting to help people in ways that was far more than just the creative side, and I was very good at it. People were getting very great results at the time just with their business branding and their marketing and their positioning, and, launching businesses and launching festivals, and we were creating that sort of success. And then I went, but there's more to this. Why are people getting great results for, a period of time and then they plateau. And I was like, there's got to be something else deeper here. And that sort of, and I was also at my own point of like, why aren't I further along? So I was both what I was experiencing as a leader in my late 20s, early 30s, I was also witnessing in clients of all ages, of all demographics, of all sizes. And I was like, okay, there's more to this. So my purpose sort of came from wanting to draw the best out of myself to the highest level and then show other people how to do that for themselves and their companies, that they too could realize goals and dreams that they thought, well, they're just too big for me or I can't do that. And that's how we are here today.
Yeah, and that's very powerful because you was running two businesses and both of them require maximal attention of you, maximal focus, because you're doing such important stuffs and there is not much place for failure. And my question to you is how you manage to build the businesses without losing yourself in the process. Because all the time looking at your career backwards, I see that you was doing it with quite success, where you was still maintaining to be quite happy what you're doing and driven and passionate. You was never losing yourself in the process.
Yeah, that's right. I'm 2 decades now self-employed, so I haven't just started this yesterday. And this last decade has been predominantly in the mindset and leadership mentorship space. And the reason why I haven't lost myself in that way in building these businesses and kind of getting on the overwhelm burnout trail. Look, even when I had my children, it was difficult at times, but I was so grounded in my self-image. I was so grounded in my goal. My point of support was never outside of myself in the circumstance. It was never in the business. It was never in the money. It was never in anything outside of me. I grounded myself in the image that I saw of myself on the inside and my identity and my thoughts. And so no matter what was going on, I tried to really come back to the image and began to see that what I was experiencing was just, and as the success that I was creating was nothing more than a product of the image that I was holding on the inside. And so I tried not to rise or fall with the success or the failures. And I think that sometimes leaders can do that. We can be tempted to be really happy when things are going really well and really sad and depressed when they're not going so well. And what I like to help myself with and clients is to just keep it a little more even keeled, right? Just a little more steady, that we can just ride it out in a little bit more of a even sort of tempo. And that's what I did. And so even when I had my children and faced challenges in my personal life, I could ground myself in just, okay, it's neither good nor bad. We just have to keep an even tempo here and ground myself in my inner identity and my inner image of who I want to become and what I want to create. And that will support me through whatever's going on. And by the same token, I never let my successes define me either, as in to think, oh, well, I've just had my first 7-figure year. Wow, I'm so awesome. I never sort of let myself, I acknowledged it as a result of who I'd become and what I had created, rather than saying, well, you're worth it now or you're worthy. I went, that has to be an inside job. We can't let our results dictate how we feel about ourselves.
That's very powerful. So many people are ready to even make wrong decisions based on their previous success by saying, come on, I made all of this, so I must be right. And this is what you're saying. It's very powerful balance. So I would like to ask you, is there a cost of your success that people don't see?
the early mornings, getting up and doing the work and doing the study that I don't necessarily talk about and share, the repetition that I do, that sort of where you're paying the price, you're doing the mental work. Particularly with social media, you see the output. It's all visual.
Yeah.
Right? But the visual is only there because we've paid the price to hold the image, to become it, to achieve that level of success. I would say, when my babies were very small, I kept working. I had a business that, it wasn't at that point click and pays as much. It was a lot more sitting down with each prospect and going through a discovery call and enrolling them. So, I didn't take maternity leave like other mums, or, my second baby, I took a little bit of time off. I took a few months, but that sort of coincided then with COVID. And I already had built my business to 7 figures by that stage. But that's probably it. If I think about an actual behind the mindset work, the price that we pay for the success that we want, and the calibration of self-image and the paradigm shifts. When I look back, I didn't take the 3 or 6 months just to be with my children. But also, Nick, that wasn't really what I wanted at the time. My best energy that I gave my children, my babies, the best energy because I was doing what I loved. I was serving in a way that I had the best energy. And I don't know whether the right decision for me would have been to just take that amount of time off just to be with my children, because I was so rewarded by my work that my children had the best of me when I was with them. So it's an interesting question.
Thank you. You doing what you're doing all the time on the highest level, I must say. I want to ask you where the belief comes from. Where do you have a source of energy where you say, I believe in that. No matter what, I'm driven to do it. And actually, what role does faith play in your decisions?
Well, I, again, have a very strong faith, but my faith, so if I take it all the way back, I was baptized Roman Catholic, but I grew up in a very small town in Australia that only had 100 people.
Wow.
So I never had the institution of the church as such. I had a faith that you could sit under a tree and you could connect with the Almighty. I had an experience of having mass in a town hall with a sister who would fly in an aeroplane. I also had the experience, if we just look at it from that point, of going to masses of other denominations, because that was just who was in our little town, our little village at the time. So I had this really beautiful experience, and I also grew up in a very strong Indigenous population. And they also have their beliefs with story and spirit and energy. And so I had this really unique upbringing that was beyond any religious denomination. It was energy, a belief in an energy and a power that we're connected with. And you can feel it, as you know, in nature. And I lived on the edge of a desert, and in waterways that were natural. And so my faith and my energy, sort of, I guess my foundation for that was my upbringing and who I was around, and these really strong versions of faith. And then obviously my brother passed away, and I believed that he was still here. I could feel his energy and I was connected with him, and and there was this lived experience of spirit, of energy, and we're connected with this power, and it can speak to us. And that sort of evolved the more I studied it and the more I understood it. It's our own inner being. It's our own perfect self. It's our own inner God. It's our own power. It's our own faith that we can lean on. It's not outside of us, it's within us, and we can connect to that. And then, like anything, the more, when we talk about beliefs, how do I believe an idea? Well, the more you tell yourself a story, the more you believe it, good, bad, or indifferent. We know that, plenty of people believe things that aren't necessarily true, but if you hear it enough, or if you hear the propaganda enough, or if you hear it in the media enough, you might begin to believe it's true. So I was conscious of saying, well, what do I want to believe for myself? What do I want to believe about myself? That I am a spiritual being, that I am in a non-physical sense, but here I am today physically showing up. But Karen Brook is not a name. It's not just on a screen. It's an energy. It's a mind. She has a mind. And I will continue to exist long before I'm here physically. My energy and my spirit, my beingness will be here long after, I've physically transitioned. And so I began to understand it. I began to study it, but I also had lived experiences of a higher power intervening or supporting or connecting or guiding, providing guidance, acting on it physically and seeing how it worked out, that gave me a belief, and it strengthened my faith. But when it really shifted for me, Nick, when it became a very powerful base, was when I really began to study myself. Not study religion, not study any particular, when I studied me and started to understand myself, my mind, my subconscious mind, my emotional calibration, how I was creating the results of my life. When I started to study that gave me faith that I could create the outcomes that I wanted in my life. It wasn't blind faith. I wasn't relying on something outside of myself. It was beginning to work within myself in harmony with the powerful source that we have. Now, you could say source energy, the universe, God, the depending on what you believe in, but there is a power beyond what we physically know that we can tap into, that can support us and guide us. And the more I studied that and understood it for myself, the more faith I had within myself to create the outcomes that I wanted, whether that was personally or professionally.
I love three things you said, and this is very powerful answer you gave. And one of them is that you said it was always within you. And this is very, very, very powerful. And as well, in previous question, you told me that this was just happening, or your success through you was delivered to the world. And most of the people have really to think about that and to understand that what you're speaking here is a true value and it's a true leadership. But I would like to ask you, when you face a fear, what do you tell to yourself? How do you create belief in outcome you want?
Well, I think fear is a really good sign that you're growing, that you're moving in new dimensions, that you're right on the edge of your own identity. Because if every move that we made, if you think of it like this, Nick, if every decision we go to act on, if every move we go to make in business, we never felt fear, it would mean that we're operating well within the bounds of our identity, our personality. There's we're not stretching, quite literally. So I think when you encounter fear in any situation, it means you're right on the edge of your own capacity, of your own. If you think about your inner identity that's locked in your subconscious mind, in every cell of your being, that when you feel fear, it's like you're stretching that like a rubber band, and it can pinch a little bit. We go, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that, because we want to go back to what we know. It's safe. And so we've got to ask ourselves, when we experience fear, is this moving me in the direction that I want to go? Where is it that I want to go? What is my goal, or who do I want to become? And is the decision I'm about to make or the action that I want to take that I now stand with fear, but is it helping me get to where I want to go? Is it a skill I need to learn? Is it part of my evolution or my new identity? And being able to link that moment of fear to an outcome that's positive for us or helping us achieve something, it doesn't remove the fear. We've still got to step through it, but you have faith, you're stronger, your will is stronger to move through it than if we had no idea about where we wanted to go or who we wanted to become, and we're just bouncing around this ocean with no direction and we're scared, right? Feeling fear and being scared are, sort of one and the same, but you can be scared and out of control, or you can be scared and in control. And whether you're scared and out of control is going to be based on where your mind is at, how you feel about yourself, what your identity is, your environment, or you can be scared and in control, knowing that you're moving yourself in the direction that you want to go. And then you just tiptoe if you must, but you keep making the next move. Because if you don't, it's like you're knocking yourself down your own self-esteem ladder. Like you're the one that loses, nobody else. It's your own self-respect. When you know you want to do it, but you're scared. But when you do it, you go, okay, that's a little bit of strength. That's a little more faith. That's a little more confidence. I can do things that I didn't think I could do. We don't have to, we don't have to make massive moves that are way beyond where we're at. We just got to move beyond where we're at. And then that'll give us capacity to make the next move and the next move. That's self-leadership. That's sovereign leadership, where you belong enough to yourself that you're willing to feel the fear and do it anyway.
It's very powerful. And I must ask you, can someone truly operate from abundance when the world around them is in mess due to them being scared?
Well, abundance is an energy, isn't it? If you think about who you are as a being, as a non-physical being, as a spiritual being, it's pure positive source energy. In your purest form, non-physical, it's abundance. So where we get confused is when we think of abundance only in one form. Mm-hmm. We think of abundance in just what I see. And I don't see the money in my bank account, and I see the poverty in the world, and I see it, and I see it. And guess what? Then all you're doing as the individual, as the leader in the moment, is amplifying the lack. Now, we know that the lack may exist in some areas, but that cannot be our point of support. We have to go back to and connect with abundance as our birthright. And we never have to look further than, the ocean and trees and the universe and the stars and the galaxies. It just goes on and on and on. And this power that we're connected with universally is also infinite. And so if we can ground ourselves back in our source, see, most people, Nick, they're not connected with themselves. They're so earthbound in a mechanical environment. They're so disconnected with themselves, even the best of the best. To go at your purest essence, your pure positive source energy, that is unconditional, that is infinite, that's the source from which we create from. The reason why we may create lack or poverty is because we use that energy and we put ideas of lack and poverty in it. Now, if we want to solve issues, that fit into that caliber, we can't solve it from a lack and poverty mindset. We have got to go to an abundance and back to the source and back to the laws that say, the law of increase, just look at human nature, that we have an inherent desire for increase. If we didn't, we'd be dead, right? Like if you think about it, the mind and the body, we want to grow. We want to prosper. That's our natural state. We've got to remember that. and work from that natural state of increase. And from within us, we start to create increase on the outside. And we should never underestimate, we think one person can't change the world, but they can. Because you're going to carry that energy into every interaction of the day, into every post on social media, into every interaction. And you change the world by changing your own life first, and then one person at a time after that. Start with you.
This is a very, very powerful answer, and thank you so much for this. I believe that everybody listening to us now, it's starting to making notes, because this is very powerful what you're saying, and it's absolutely true. Most of the people believe that life is happening to them, because they just believe that they're just walking some certain path and meeting environment, which is completely opposite of what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. But tell me, at the very beginning, when you started your story, I believe that most of the people could say, I can align to that. I can align to her. That's partly my childhood. What does alignment actually mean to you?
Alignment is attachment to an idea, or I use the word frequency. So if we go back to a basic concept that thoughts are energy, very basic concept. And let's use an example that everyone can relate to, that when you walk into a room with a person or a group of people, very quickly you know which person's in a good mood and which person's in a bad mood. How do we know that? Because we can pick up their energy.
Yeah.
Now, you know that, right? So we're not, everyone can understand this. So you know that the person that's got the good energy, that's in a positive mood, has probably been thinking good thoughts. They've got a healthy self-image, or they've had a great start to their day and they're happy, and you can feel that. And chances are, if you were to start a conversation with the negative person, they would tell you about how difficult it was to get to work this morning, and the traffic, and, that the car broke down and they didn't get a good night's sleep, and their thoughts are of a lower energy or lower frequency. They're negative thoughts. So we know that thoughts are energy, and that we can, with our collection of thoughts, we can build an idea. So therefore, and we think energy is frequency, and we know that there's plenty of scientific evidence to say we exist in frequencies and we can output a frequency, that a collection of thoughts is an idea, and that idea is a reality. You're expressing, you're broadcasting a frequency. Alignment then is when we embody the thoughts, feelings, and actions that match that frequency or reality. So when you said before, many people could probably relate to part of my early upbringing, it's because they would be thinking, oh yeah, I remember when that happened, or I felt that way, or I also had to do that as a child. So they're aligning with, their thoughts are sort of sticking like glue to that image that I was creating in that moment. I created an image the way I described it. People were holding that image in their own minds. They began to have thoughts in harmony with that image that I created through my story. They had feelings in response to it, and they could relate to actions or their own behaviors in response to what they did or didn't do. So that alignment is when we align with somebody, we're aligning with their energy or their frequency or the idea. We're kind of up on that standard now. And so that's the way I think of alignment, because that's what it is. It's you're either aligned with it or you're not. You're either aligned with your goal or you're not. You're either holding the standard of your identity or you're not. You either resonate with a person or you don't. But you're always outputting an idea or a frequency, an image. And as you broadcast that, through you're holding that standard, people are going to pick up on it. And they'll align with you, or they'll align with a little bit of you, but they're not fully there yet. And they'll come in a little bit more, and then they'll lean in, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, I really resonate with that. That's alignment. Resonance is alignment.
Very powerful. Is this means then, I'm very curious to you answering that people cannot achieve success until they do not align with the energy and amplitude of the energy and of vibration of successful people. Because
of their own goal, right?
that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not about trying to be like anybody else. It's being able to say, what is it that you want as an individual? There's a great quote by a man, Earl Nightingale. He was a founding father of the personal development industry in America. And he said, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The second that you set the goal and you begin working towards it, you're a success. And what he meant by that is it's not after we achieve a physical outcome. You had to become someone in the process in order to create that outcome, right? You wouldn't, if you didn't become the person who could hold it, you wouldn't have created those results. And this is also why, Nick, you see people that win the lotto, the lottery, they often don't keep it because they may not have the self-image to hold it, or the person that loses 10 or 20 or 30 kilograms or pounds and they keep it off for 6 months, but they put it back on because they didn't have the identity, the self-image to hold those results. So what Earl Nightingale was saying is very true, that the second we decide what we want and who we want to be, and we begin to hold that standard for ourselves in our thoughts, feelings and actions, in how we create, we're already there. What we're waiting for is the physical side to catch up. We're already successful. And so we can look around other people and get ideas of what's possible for ourselves. We can look to other successful people and say, well, I'd like that, or that's a nice idea. But then we've got to hold it for ourselves and then become it within ourselves and align to that. And then that makes us successful.
Thank you. You gave me perfect answer, and I first time ever hear for that quote, which I will definitely remember. I know that preparing for this interview, I realized that you were a client of Bob Proctor and that you guys together worked. And I must ask you, several people was here on this podcast who are very close to Bob, including his son. What is the most misunderstood lesson Bob Proctor ever taught you, in the way that people misunderstand it? They cannot truly unlock the lesson which is behind his words and behind his teaching.
Oh, the most misunderstood lesson. Well, here's a lesson that Bob taught me that I never understood or got anywhere else in the world from any other leader ever until he taught it to me.
Wow.
So this was, he said, Karen, no one is better than or less than anybody else. It's all in awareness. So our awareness is the level that our mindset is on. Our awareness is what we can do and what we can create and what we can hold within our self-image, right? It's our energy. Awareness is energy. And so if we're creating results down here, but we want to create results up here, we have to change our level of awareness. We have to make a paradigm shift. We have to get up to this level. And he said to me, no one is better than or less than anybody else. And he said, when you get that lesson, you'll be able to walk into any room, anywhere in the world with anybody and feel like you belong there. And I was like, wow, okay. Because I still had, I'm pretty good at talking to anybody, anywhere, but every now and again I would still think maybe I'm not good enough or maybe I don't belong here. And I think that's natural for most people at different times. And then when I learnt that lesson from him, that it's all in awareness, I realized that I have a level of awareness with respect to certain things in my life that you wouldn't have. But that doesn't mean I'm better than you. It doesn't mean that you're better than me. It's just we have different levels of awareness. And he said, if you don't understand this lesson, and you walk into the room and you think you're better than somebody else in that room, it means you also feel inferior in other rooms you walk into. So I'll say that again. He said,
Wow.
if you don't understand this, you will walk into some rooms and think you're better than everybody else in the room. And you'll go into other rooms and you'll feel inferior to everybody else. But he said, when you understand this lesson, that no one is better than or less than anybody else, it all exists in levels of awareness, you can walk into any room and feel like you belong there. You won't hold yourself down, or ego won't be able to play a role, because you know that everyone is operating right now with their highest level of awareness. Your awareness might change in another 6 months and you'll know how to do more. But we've got to believe that everyone in this moment is doing the best that they can with the level of awareness that they have. And that was a lesson that I never understood or never got or never heard like that truly liberated me to work with any client, anywhere. You know, I remember attracting my first client who was worth, I don't know, 10 or $20 million. And there was a little moment of like, why is she coming to me? You know, I have never earned that sort of money. But it was, I had a level of awareness with respect to this work that she didn't have. She knew how to earn $20 million in construction. I didn't know that, but I had a level of awareness that she didn't have. And so if it wasn't for that lesson from Bob, I would have thought, oh, I'm inferior here. But because I got that lesson from Bob, it was like, we're no better than or less than each other. It's all in awareness. And she's here working with me because I have a level of awareness beyond what she has and beyond what most people have in this space. And that's why I'm highly sought after. That's why leaders come from around the world to work with me, because of the awareness that I have in this space.
Did this build self-confidence in you from that moment until now on, that you can work literally with anybody in the world, no matter of their achievements, of their success, because it's all about awareness? This completely changed the picture now for everybody who is listening or watching, including for me. Because if we look at the things through awareness level, then we are all absolutely equal, except that our awarenesses are not equal.
Correct.
In the
That's
certain
exactly
moment.
Right. You have absolutely nailed it. That's exactly right. We all have a mind and a body. We're all connected with the higher power. We can all think thoughts. We all have paradigms in our subconscious mind, or I'll use the word programming, you know. We all have mental faculties. We're all the same except for the level of awareness. And, you know, a neurosurgeon, I'm not a neurosurgeon. I don't know how to do neurosurgery, but I can fly an airplane. It doesn't make the neurosurgeon any better than me, or me because I can fly an airplane any better than them. We just have different levels of awareness. Yeah. That lesson, I guess, really, it stopped me from putting blocks up. You know, putting blocks that I can be in that room, but not that room, or but this client's right for me, or that one's not. And really said, well, you know, what do I want it to look like? Who would I love to work with? Not because I'm worthy or not worthy, like it's all in awareness. So I think it did lead to a level of self-confidence. It certainly helped me to feel like I belong in whatever room I walk into. It also stopped me from judging people very quickly. You know, we might all sometimes have a tendency to judge someone else, or,
yes,
you know, good, bad, or indifferent, you know, and I think I stopped doing that. I tried to hold back on not judging and rather trusting that people, having to trust and believe, because if we believe that, right, this is the thing, this is where our beliefs always check out. If we believe that that we're neither better than or less than, it's all in awareness, we also then have to believe that people are doing the best that they can with their level of awareness. Now,
exactly.
Correct. It doesn't mean we have to tolerate it. It doesn't mean that we say, well, that's good enough for me, or that sometimes behavior isn't what we want it to be. But we can free ourselves from judgment of ourselves and of others. And we rather make decisions in the circles that we want to move in and who we want to create within what level we want to create from our own identity and our goal, rather than a judgment of that's good, that's not.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the same way, it's a disarming each of us from ego, so that if we see that someone out there do not align with our level of awareness, we can or try to teach them or coach them or make their awareness higher, or simply to step away without trying to persuade them directly into that, which is extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's right. We hold the standard and we operate from that. And people will, they'll rise or they won't. And it's not up to you to do that work for another person. You can create the frameworks or the mentorship or, the guidance as to how to do it. But if we sort of try and project, then really we're absolving the individual from their own personal responsibility that, hey, you too, can create what you want. You can take responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Most people, and it's a crazy thing to say, Nick, don't even realize that they can think on purpose and think what they want to think, and they don't have to be bound by the paradigms around them or the judgments or, a judgment can only have effect if we then take it on board or we hear it and believe it. But we can reject things and say, you know what, that's not me anymore. Or I don't want to go down that path anymore. Or that doesn't align with who I want to be and what I want to create in this world. And it's not the easiest thing to always adjust from. But we've got to have personal responsibility to recognize that we can. The awareness that we can is the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. This is extremely powerful what you said right now, and this is absolutely the golden nugget I heard. That's absolutely amazing. But I want to ask you now, knowing this, do you think that everyone meant to lead, or leadership is something what they still have to earn?
I think that there's leadership and followership. I think every leader has also learnt to be a great follower.
Yeah.
And so in each and every one of us, so this interview is a great example. Right now, I'm actually following you. You're the leader here. I'm following your direction, your questions, but in other spaces, when I'm online with my clients, I'm leading. I'm setting the tone. I'm setting the agenda.
That's very powerful.
So I think it's really important that we don't think leadership, we should never think leadership is a title or a position that has to be earned as such. And we want to come back to our own self-leadership. And self-leadership also is about followership. So how well do we follow? Who are we following? Knowing when to follow and when we need to lead. And then as we're leading, and then I think because the better you become as a follower, the more respected you are as a leader. Because think about it like this, Nick. No one wants to follow a leader who lacks self-confidence, who lacks awareness, who isn't a good person. So when you think about your own followership, who you're looking up to, who you might be following, how you're showing up as a follower, you get a great perspective as a leader, how you need to show up or you want to show up as a leader that other people want to follow you. So those attributes of like leaving everyone with the impression of increase, making them feel better for having come in contact with you. We can practice that from a followership role and a leadership role. We lead ourselves and our company. First of all, we have to lead ourselves. We have to know what we want and who we want to be and lead ourselves. And you can be an employee in a company and leading yourself to your goal, but also then following the leader or following what is required of that, your role in that company. And then within the role that you're in the company or in your own business, you have to lead yourself in the pursuit of the goal, the standard that you're setting for yourself. taking action in service of the purpose. So leadership is about self-leadership, being in control of yourself, operating in an orderly state, being willing to work from role, knowing what role you're in, your work role, your CEO role, whatever it is. But then at home, you might need to take on a followership. You might need to follow, what your partner's doing, or, what the soccer coach wants you to do with the children on the field. That's also, followership is a very important attribute of becoming a successful leader.
Mm-hmm. Love it. And you actually made a very good parallel here between the interview and between you taking your keynotes or coaching people. And that's very good angle. You work with so many high achievers. We're speaking about multimillionaire and people who really made certain level of success in their life. Looking at all of them as clients, I want to ask you, what is something what always surprise you in the way that maybe you expect to these people be on that awareness or know that or operate from that level, and then when you see that, you said like, okay, that's the point we have also to work on.
Something that particularly with high achievers, that they aren't clear about their goal, what they want. They're not able to articulate it in one sentence. It's a little bit more of a vision than a goal. Wow. So, and I say that with utmost respect, but when we think about a goal is like, it's a very specific image that we hold, and it's like an anchor. And it holds the standard then of where we need to adjust our self-image to, and our thinking and feelings and actions. It would be like saying, I want to climb beautiful mountains around the world. Just that's my goal. And I say, what do you mean? What mountain? When? Where do you want to go? How high? So
define.
Define it. And I think, and they're scared to set fantasy goals. They're scared to dream beyond what they know, because also a level of their identity or their success is built in being successful at achieving their goals. So it's almost a bit of a, I've really got to sort of, and get them dreaming again about possibilities. What do you really want? What would you love? What does that look like? And they'll often say, well, I want more time with my family. That's my goal. I want more free time on the weekends. And I'll say, well, you're getting more into self-image there, how you want to be as a person. But what would that look like if we were to really define that? Is it that you want to maintain the revenue of the company, but work 3 days a week and have, complete downtime on the weekends? Like, what is the actual picture that we are moving towards here? And so you can create phenomenal success, but not fully understand how your mind works with goals, how you need to think in a certain way to create the outcomes that we want. And then when we begin to get things working in a better way internally, we can create the success with less overwhelm, with less burden, with less burnout. And so the reward of really understanding how to set the right kind of goals for your mind, how they influence how you feel and how you create, the payoff is mental freedom. The payoff is time freedom. The payoff is money freedom. There's a huge amount of reward when you get that right, and then you work in a way to become it, to hold the standard, to upgrade the mental programming, to hold new results. I've worked with very successful leaders, who are used to earning millions of dollars, but the idea of it feeling easy or effortless because they're programmed to work really hard for it, or the idea that, it could happen in a new way, or they might be used to earning it as a CEO, but in their own business, that's like how? you know. So this is something that I find is quite common, that people generally know they might generally know, but they haven't yet got the specifics in their thinking in a way that really can move the needle on their life.
Is there a certain way how people can shift or start shifting vision into goal?
Yes, there is. So write out the vision that you have for your life. Write out. And the reason why vision is not enough for transformation is because your vision will always expand. The more awareness you have, it's a little bit like the higher up the mountain we go, the more we can see, the more we want. So our vision will always keep expanding. But if we haven't made a decision to move up the mountain, right, to lock on to getting to the top as our goal, we've never afforded ourselves the opportunity for our vision to expand. So vision itself, whilst powerful, isn't enough to really drive transformation. But we can use our vision for our life and what we want and how we see ourselves to then decide where we want to go first. Mm-hmm. To say, okay, from here I want to go there. That's my next stop. That's the part of the vision that I want to make a reality next or now. That's the part of the vision that I want to hold steadily in my mind and become it now. And as we become it and we raise our level of awareness, we get to see more, and we'll see a little bit more of the vision then, and we'll see a little bit more of the self-image. But it's because we take a part of that and then we turn it into a clear goal that we can then hold and work with every day. It sort of stabilizes us. Otherwise, we're just sort of, I always say it's like creating with jelly. There's nothing, there's no foundation to it. It's wobbly, it's unstable. But when we get that hook and we get that anchor, we really can shift things and create new results or new experiences very quickly because we're stable in our approach.
Very powerful. Literally a blueprint, turning a vision into the reality and into the goal.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I love it. Do you personally believe in vision boards?
Great question. I don't have a vision. Well, not really. I believe in them, but personally, I don't have a vision board. But I do have like an album on my phone where I collect pictures that I put it there. If you're a very visual person and you love to look at it, then that's really going to work for you. There's nothing, it's a great place to start. But what's more powerful is to take your vision board, what elevates the vision board, whether you've got an app on your phone full of inspiring pictures or you've got a vision board, is to take that vision board and write it, turn it into a new self-image script or an identity script. Take those pictures and describe yourself in it. I'm so happy and grateful now that I own this beautiful house, 3-bed, 4-bath, that I drive this beautiful car, that I'm taking holidays over here. So basically write a written description of your vision board or of the app of the album on your phone and think about and make it take ownership of it is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So write it out. I'm so happy and grateful now that I am. Claim it as yourself. And why this is so powerful, Nick, is you write it out, make a recording of it, print it out, listen to it on a loop, 15, 20 minutes a day. Your subconscious mind, as you hear that and you begin to see yourself in the picture, so now the picture's not outside, you're actually using your imagination to see yourself in the picture. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something real and imagined.
Yeah.
Any idea we give emotion to, the subconscious mind goes, oh, that's real. So as we start to get involved with repetition, we create desire. Desire is not there from day one. We have the idea, we have the vision, we have the script. When we start to get involved with repetition, we're impressing this image, this idea upon our subconscious mind. The subconscious mind goes, oh, that's who she is now, or that's who he is, or these are experiences we're having. And in the beginning, you don't see or feel much happening with it, but eventually you start to feel like, I believe it. I believe it a little bit more. It's not just a nice idea. It's like you've actually created cells of recognition in your subconscious mind, which is in every cell of the body, that you've programmed your midbrain with this image, and you're starting to hold that standard for yourself, and then watch how things start to shift around you as a result of that. So, long story short, vision boards and folders on your phone are fine, but they're not powerful enough. If you really want to see it happen, then turn it into a self-image script and get involved with repetition.
Thank you for that. I have a couple of questions more, which I want to ask you about your impact and your legacy. And I really want to hear from you, how do you measure impact? Are there certain ways that you do that, and how?
What a great question. How do I measure impact? I mean, look, you could say mechanically, number of clients, number of people on your database, the people that you're reaching, all of that. But I think it's when you have clients that come back time after time. I have clients that enroll again every 6 months, because they're expanded, their awareness is expanding, they're able to hold more, they're creating more, they're making a bigger difference in their communities. I think I really measure my impact through the work and the outcomes of my clients, that the results that they're getting, the legacies that they're creating, because my legacy is only as good as the legacy of that my clients are creating, right? Their work and their clients. And when I get 10 years on, I'll have clients come back to me and say, or they'll send me pictures of their babies and say, the coaching that I did with you helped me to have this baby. Or they'll say that I remember in 2019 distinctly this client that when they started to work with me, they were barely earning $100,000 a year, and they had their first $1 million year. And the husband calling me and saying, I just want to let you know, KB, that we just did 7 figures. When you hear that and you hear the stories of people years and years and years on, whether they're still active in your mentorship or not, they're carrying the legacy of the work with them still. This is not just self-help, it is experiential, and the experience of learning this and studying with me and the mentorship and the energy of my presence and then my community, that stays with you forever. And so I really measure my impact by the stories that come back from people decades on, or that they heard me speak somewhere and it really changed their life, or, they've shared videos with their daughter and it's helped them, or they have come back time and time again to work with me because I'm better and better, and they use it in new ways. It meets them in new ways. And so, that for me is not only impact, but it's legacy. That's what will live on for generations to come. And every client I've ever worked with, Nick, I think they have a responsibility to uphold the legacy. When we get it for ourselves, don't just keep it for yourself. Your light shines and other people are impacted by it. Other people rise up because you said yes to you. That's impact. When you have one person that comes to work with me and then their whole company transforms in the lives of their employees, and it might be just one lesson that they took from the work with me, but that ripple effect, that's infinite. That will go on beyond my lifetime as a result of me doing this work.
And this is probably the most powerful way of measuring impact, and I would say for me personally, probably the only way, because everything else might be a vague metric. Might be something what we are achieving, but how much does it mean? For the very last, I have 2 questions more to ask you, and one of them would be, what was the biggest mindset shift you had working with Bob Proctor, leading your businesses, scaling year by year, seven figures? What was the biggest mindset shift belief you achieved when it comes to money, and how it looked for you?
The first one was that I think I am enough. Often we think when we get more information, or when we build the strategy, or when we get the better website, or when we're booked for more keynotes, then we'll feel worthy of being paid, or then we'll feel worthy of the millions. To believe that who I was at any given moment was energetically enough. And I say that because we've still got to upgrade our habits, and we've still got to, think, feel, and act like the leader who earns whatever we want to earn. But to sort of make sure that I had a belief that I am enough right now, I am worthy of, I'm unconditionally worthy of the good that I desire. That's the belief. And you want to say that to yourself, that I am unconditionally worthy of the good that I desire. Not because of the degree, not because of the house, not because of the email list, not because I've invested money in the website, because I decide right where I am, who I am with what I've got, that I am worthy. And then we grow, right? Then we grow. Then we're expanding, not out of lack. Not trying to get somewhere to prove something, to be defined by it. We're saying, I'm already enough as I am, but I choose to hold this idea, which in this case includes money, and I'm comfortable with that. So that was a foundational thing that really made a difference for me, of feeling worthy and enough with who I was to hold what I wanted. The second was getting comfortable with holding the money and larger amounts of money, and being paid, that someone would pay $10,000 or $50,000 to work with me. And in the beginning, that was a lot of money for me, but it's not to the other person. It seemed a lot relative to where I had come from, but I had to make sure that I was holding the standard and the self-image and the identity, again, awareness, that the money was an energetic exchange. It didn't mean anything. A long time ago, we used to trade cows and spices and produce. Yeah. Now we trade with money. So I was giving a service and value and holding energetic standards, and people were prepared to pay me for that. And I developed an affirmation or a belief that people love to pay me to work with me. I'm so happy and grateful now that people love to pay me to work with me, that it was okay for people to pay me. That was the energetic exchange, that I was giving them something and they were giving me something in return to access that, and that I was prepared to allow myself to be paid. That was an important part of my money paradigm shift. And I only ever sold or helped people with products and services that I believed in, that I was applying in my own life, that I could walk with integrity. Otherwise, you don't sell somebody and you don't take their money. If you don't believe in it, don't do it. But I knew with every cell of my being that when they would work with me, they would be transformed by that experience. And therefore, there is that energetic exchange, and that is a natural law to have that exchange. And when I started to understand that, I was much more comfortable with the business transaction.
Mm-hmm. And this is very powerful. Most of the people think that they are maybe not worthy of charging high prices, but in fact, the angle you turn it, what look high to the person might not look to the client high as well.
Correct.
And it's just a exchange of a thing for a thing, like we did
and
in the past.
I'm going to add one more thing to that, because I think it's important, is that in most cases, your price is not for you, it's for your client. Mm-hmm. Because in your price, they can also see themselves. They see their self-image. They see their identity. Your price holds a standard for your client, and that's the level they want to be at. So it's like you could buy a handbag for lots of different prices. And depending on the self-image and what that client wants is what they're prepared to pay for it. The $300 handbag is just as good as the $3,000 one, but the client wants to pay $3,000. Who are we to say, if you think about it in the handbag analogy, to say, oh no, you shouldn't spend $3,000, it's not worth it. Of course it's worth it. If you want to buy it, pay for it. If you want the coaching, you go buy it. It's there. We don't need to second guess or question the price. The price is often how a client, they may find resonance through it, or they'll find resonance in your energy, and then the price aligns with your energy. But don't diminish the capacity of your clients to purchase what you have based on price. All you're doing is sort of making it that they would be that insignificant to just buy on price. It's not to do with that at all. It's they're buying from feeling, from resonance, from energy, from clarity, from self-image. They feel aligned to what you're offering. And every time I have, and I know this to be true, Nick, because I've had pricing at all different scales over the last 2 decades, and there are clients at every level.
Yeah.
There are clients who will only ever pay $3,000 for something, and there are clients that only ever want to be in my inner circle at 50 grand. There's clients at every level. It's just what standard do you want to hold, and can you hold yourself to that a client can see themselves in it, and you're just providing the opportunity for them to buy. That's up to them. You're just there holding the space for them.
Absolutely. This is awesome. And I want to ask you the last question for this interview. What is one lesson you hope the next generation of leaders doesn't have to learn on the hard way? That
we can leverage the laws of the universe and the laws of our mind to create bigger impact and better results with less effort. To remember the spiritual side of ourselves, to remember that we have a mind and we have the ability to think, and we have a will, and we have intuition, and we have our imagination, and we have perception. We have these tools that we can use to create from the inside to the outside, and not be bound so much in balancing the mechanical, the results, the physical with the non-physical, with the mind work. That I hope that for generations to come, that they it's like Albert Einstein said, that we've created a society who, honors the physical and has forgotten the sacred gift, their mind, their intuition. That we find a new generation of leaders who this way of talking about results and building an image is normal for a boardroom, is for Fortune 500 companies to visualize the outcome, to write clearly about what they want, to build the new paradigms in their leadership team, to create the results that they want, so that there is more personal well-being and satisfaction in every employee within the company, that they're not getting burnt out or overwhelmed or got, mental distress, that it doesn't have to be like that. We can go, we've got this part of ourselves we can work with. But if the leader doesn't understand it or know how to use it, or is not confident, then it's not going to filter down. And we're going to continue to perpetuate the same cycles of glass ceilings and burnout and moving sideways and lack of creativity. And we're treating symptoms, not the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is what's going on within the human beings in that company, within the mind of the leadership team, on the inside. And until we start to work there, we're just going to go sideways and continue to perpetuate the same systemic problems from one generation to the next. But the solution is not difficult. We've got to start to create from the inside first.
That's absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much. I really want to thank you for sparing time for this interview, and I want to thank you for all the golden nuggets you give us today. Definitely in the description area of this video, I will put down the links how people can find you and whatever you have prepared for them. And for all of you guys who listen, This was one of definitely the best episodes I ever did. And today with us was Karen Brook. Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to be here with your community today. So thank you.
Thank you.